Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching third part of What If Naruto Becomes No Life King. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Hiyashi sighed and put the last piece of paperwork in the done pile, happy to have finished the day's work earlier than usual. He looked at the clock on the wall and muttered, "Noon already? Maybe I wasn't working as quickly as I thought." He stood up and walked out of his office, wondering how many clan leaders had called it their own before him. Shaking his head to get rid of those thoughts, he walked down the hall toward the clan head's family's dining room. Even though the caged bird seal was used too much in the branch house, even though the Hyuga clan could be a little too formal at times, the branch house was still pretty nice. Hanabi said, "Good morning, father," as she ate her lunch at the table. Hiyashi didn't like how much the room was decorated, but other than the chairs, there was only one table big enough for about 10 people that had many different kinds of food on it. Everything else was just for show, which may have been what bothered him. Pretty things were nice, but everything should have a purpose. "Good morning, Hanabi-chan," said the person at the head of the table. He looked around at the empty seats and asked, "Where is your sister?" She came back a few days ago, and it was strange that not many people knew about her curse. In reality, Hiyashi didn't care, and it made Hinata's life easier because the Hyuga Council didn't want a vampire as the heir and didn't want to upset Hiyashi, so they asked if they could name Hanabi as the heir because of her talent. Hinata and Heishi came to an agreement, so Hiyashi was able to be less strict during training. A maid came in from the kitchen and said, "I think Hinata-sama is still asleep." She put a pitcher of juice and a few apples on the table, then nervously bowed. No one had asked her straight out. "Hanabi, please go wake up your sister. I know she's tired, but noon is way too late." He said this because he knew Hanabi needed to know about her sister before someone else did. Given how often she went to see her older sister, he was surprised that she hadn't seen her sister's coffin yet. She got up and walked away after saying, "Hi." Hanabi didn't know why Hinata had been letting her sister sleep in lately, since she usually woke her up. She didn't know because no one had told her anything. Maybe she hadn't fully recovered from whatever happened on her C rank that made her stay in the hospital for a week. She chose to give her sister some space because she didn't know what was going on. Part of her wondered if it was just part of being 16 and if she would go through the same thing in 6 years. She knocked on the door and said, "Hinata, this is Hanabi. San wants you to wake up." "Hinata?" She opened the door and stopped when she didn't hear anything that sounded like someone getting out of bed. Hanabi was scared because there was a huge coffin where the bed should have been. She moved slowly over and tapped on the lid. When she heard a groan from inside, she jumped back. The lid opened with a creak and landed with a soft thud on the rug next to the coffin. Hanabi was a little scared as she watched her sister sit up in the coffin, her eyes glowing red for a few seconds. Hinata asks, "Is it already morning?" She didn't notice that her sister was shaking a few feet away. She yawned and stretched her arms while holding Moriko in her left hand. Hanabi got a good look at her two long upper teeth. Hinata looked over when she was done and saw Hanabi standing there, shaking. "Good morning, Hanabi. What's the matter?" Hinata took a piece of her tangled hair in her hands and pointed to it with her eyes, which had changed color to purple. She asks, "Is my bedhead that bad?" A moment later, she realized that her sister didn't know she was a vampire. She gave a sigh and a smile. "Hanabi, thanks for waking me up. Can you leave so I can get dressed?" Hanabi nodded and left the room, making sure the door closed behind her. Once she was only a few feet away, Hinata could hear her feet moving faster. "The council leaves me alone, and my sister is afraid of me," she sighed as she got out of her coffin, which she had to admit was very comfortable. She locked the door just in case someone came to check on her and saw her changing. Hinata could see her whole body in the large oval mirror in her room, but all it showed was a door locking itself. Naruto had warned her about that. To see a reflection, she would have to focus and fill her body with chakra. It came into view, and she gave a half smile. Being a vampire looked good on her. She couldn't pull it off like Naruto did because she likes lighter colors, but after 3 days of having her own clothes back, she had started to develop her own style. She took off her red nightgown, a little bit mesmerized by the way she looked in the mirror. She had seen herself naked before, but now she was so hot that even she couldn't believe it. Any fat that was still on her body had been taken off, leaving her just thin enough to look sexy and healthy. She had to admit that her hips had gotten a little wider and that her body was getting close to the shape of an hourglass. She turned to the side and sighed. She liked her breasts, but they were always in the way during Juken training. Now that she was about to go from AD to a DD, she knew they would get in the way at least once. After looking at the changes for the 3rd day in a row, she told herself that she loved her new body. If it wasn't a mirror, I'd do her, she told herself, slapping her hand over her mouth and blushing. Had she actually? Who said it? In public? She quickly put on her usual clothes, but the white parts of her jacket were now gray. She stopped for a moment and looked back at her red-faced reflection in the mirror. She didn't know if she was more embarrassed by the fact that a woman's body had turned her on or by the fact that she had said she wanted to have a sexual relationship with her own reflection. She walked out of her room and shut the door behind her. She tried to get these thoughts out of her head, but as she walked away, she couldn't help but stare at one of the maids behinds. Hinata went back to her room for a moment, shut the door, and did a private facepalm. When she looked at herself again, she saw that she hadn't brushed her hair. She decided that brushing and smoothing her hair would be a good way to take her mind off of what she had been thinking about. She tried to convince herself by saying, I just woke up, and my mind is just a little fuzzy. Still, that maid had a nice saying, bad thoughts, bad thoughts. She stopped and looked at herself in the mirror for a moment. She knew that the curse had made her hair grow a few inches, but she couldn't tell what was wrong with the one lock she was looking at. She tried to brush it down, but it popped back up, curls and all. Your hair makes me think of a person from Alucard's past. Hinata jumped and spun around with a hairbrush and a stuffed wolf in her hands. She sighed, but when she saw that it was her master sitting on her closed coffin, her face changed. She told him, you're supposed to ask permission before going into a girl's room. Even though Naruto was her master and a higher rank than her, he was still her friend, so she could be mad at him. He defended himself by putting his right leg over his left knee and saying, I waited until you left and came back. You wouldn't have walked out naked. She asks, so, how long have you been here? As she covered her chest unintentionally. Widabra used our connection to tell me when you were ready to come in. I came in after you did, he said, putting his hands up to show he was sorry. Oh, and by the way, she agrees that the maid did have a nice behind. Hinata's face turned 5 different shades of red at the comment, and she tried to say something back. But isn't that sexual? He asked out loud, making the girl blush even more. Widabra said in both of their minds, actually, it doesn't matter as long as she doesn't have sex with her or masturbate at the thought of her ass or body. Hinata had a hard time hearing the spirit because she was connected to Naruto, but she still did. Hinata sputtered and looked very scared. We're just joking, Hinata. If you like women better, that's your choice, and there's nothing wrong with that, he told her to calm her down a bit. She groaned and tried again to brush down the one curl of hair that was sticking out. It looked kind of funny. Guess whose hair she has? Here's a hint. My bullet doesn't care if you're a tinker, a tanker, a soldier, or a sailor. It's just a little confusing. I'm still the daughter of a clan head, so I can't think like that, she said as she watched the curl rise up again. You're 16. Try new things. At that age, no one is really sure about their sexuality, and if you try some new things, it will be easier to deal with those inevitable awkward moments, he told her. Do. What? She asked with a blush as she turned around. I mean, let's say you never kiss a girl, whether you want to or not. Then, after you do a job for her, she gives you a kiss on the lips as a reward and tries to slip you the tongue. You'll either freak out or freeze, he said. I don't think you would react as badly if you kissed one now, even if you don't like it. And I guess you're telling me this from experience, she poked at him. She didn't think he had ever had a similar experience. Technically, he kissed me, he said. But yes. I didn't like it and would step away if it happened again, but if a customer ever tries to kiss me, he'll at least keep his head. Maybe not his arms, but his head. Hinata got red in the face and wondered who had the guts, or the height, to try to kiss the no-life king. He stood up and gave one of his bows and said, I've gone on long enough. Kurenai-sensei wants us to meet in the mission room. We're trying for another C rank. I'll try to hold myself back this time. No, Naruto-kun, this wasn't. Yes, it was. Kurenai wants you at the mission room in an hour. Drink and get loose. Leave the hair alone. You can't get it to stay down, he said to stop her. Some vampires just have hair that looks different. He turned and went back into the shadows, leaving the heiress alone. She didn't really hold him responsible for her curse or for what happened on the mission. Even though Hinata tried to help, he seemed to want all of the blame. In all honesty, the mission had given her both the curse and a fear of men, though she didn't think the fear of men bothered him as much as the curse. Even though she asked Weedabra in her dreams, which seemed to take place in Weedabra's town, who else he had turned or what his lover's name was, she didn't find out. She didn't go to Naruto's castle out of respect, and she tried to stay out of the way when Weedabra's lovers came out to play games twice in the last 72 hours. She had seen the darkness spirit, who is usually naked, dressed as a schoolgirl and getting her buttocks licked by Luciana in a quiet part of the park last night. Hinata groaned when she felt a little bit of heat rising in her body at the thought. She thought that what Naruto said might be true, but what should she do? She hadn't even asked anyone out before, let alone a girl. She gave up on the one curl and said, screw it. It came from the top of her head, stuck out a bit forward and to the right, and curled in a spiral after being straight for a few inches. She thought it was silly. She left her room and walked down the hall, ignoring where her mind wanted to go. She walked into the dining room and sat down, ignoring her sister's muffled laughter. It seemed that her sister had gotten over her fear and was now laughing at her hair. Hiyashi said, "It looks like you forgot to brush your hair, Hinata," to which she gave him a cold look. She growled, "I tried, but it didn't work." Hinata sighed when the servant came back from the kitchen. She asked, "Please bring me the blood." Naruto had told her that it could be months before she could eat human food again, and that if she tried to eat before then, she would just throw it back up. Hi, the girl answered quickly as she ran back into the kitchen. Hanabi was no longer laughing. "Blood? What are you talking about?" Hanabi asked when the servant came back in with 2 blood packs. She put them in front of Hinata and then went away. "I can only drink blood now. Thanks to Naruto-kun, I'm a vampire," she said calmly as she tore off the end of the small tube and put it to her mouth. She hadn't thought of a good way to explain her curse to anyone yet, so she just told them she was a vampire and drank blood in front of them. They could take it however they wanted. Hanabi was scared as the blood ran out of the packet. When Hinata quietly drank the blood, she realized that this wasn't a joke. Hiyashi didn't say anything, even though he had his eyes closed and was still upset by what he saw. Hinata finished her first packet, rolled it up, and put it on the plate that had been left for her. She reached for the other package but stopped when she saw her sister's face. She sighed, put her hand in the pocket of her jacket, and stood up. She said, "I have to go. Good morning, To-san, Hanabi-chan," and then she left. Things could have turned out better. Main Street. Kiba whispered as he pointed at the woman, "Check out the ass on that one." He sat next to Naruto on a bench, and Akamaru lay down next to him on the ground. Naruto said with a facepalm, "You know, I think this is kind of insulting to the other sex." Hinata walked up to them with Moriko under her left arm and the hood of her jacket up. She looked happy, but Naruto could see that she was confused on the inside. Naruto said, "Good evening, Hinata-chan. I hope you slept well." Hinata sat on the edge of the bench next to Naruto, but there was still about a foot between them. She sighed, "Well, I guess that's fine. Weedabra decided to get some action in the woods, which was the only place I thought I could stay away from their shenanigans. How long until we go pick up the mission?" He hit the Inuzuka on the head and said, "About half an hour." Kiba seems happy to just sit here and stare at women for that long. Oh, come on, it's not that bad, he said, pointing to a woman in tight jeans and a green shirt. Hinata fought the urge to look, but Naruto could see her struggle from between his pinky and ring finger. Go ahead and look, Hinata-chan. Kami knows Kiba is at least a good wingman, he joked, which made the Inuzuka growl and punch him in the shoulder. The wild teen then realized what he had said and leaned forward to look at the blushing heiress. He asks, a little surprised, you like girls, Hinata-chan? On the other hand, he wasn't too stupid. She was almost raped by a guy, so it was pretty damn unlikely that she was interested in men now. She stuttered, because she couldn't find the right words. Kiba just gave a smile and a thumbs up. Tell me, Hinata, what you're looking for, big breasts, a small figure, some junk in the trunk, or legs that go all the way up? He said, perhaps a little too eagerly. Kiba-kun? She was surprised by his answer and asked, you're helping? Kiba laughed and scratched behind his head. Hey, well, Naruto and I made a deal that if you ever dated a guy, we'd scare the hell out of him and kill him if he ever slept with you. Not that you're easy or anything, he quickly added. But if you like chicks, I don't have to worry that they'll find the body. I'm also a good wingman, as Naruto said. I can call hellhounds from my body if it's night and the moon isn't full. They'd eat my body, so don't worry about that, Naruto said in a way that scared the two away. I'm also good at making things look like they happened by chance. Kiba and Hinata moved away from the vampire as he talked about how he could kill someone. They didn't talk over him as he talked. So, have you thought about this, or do you want me to just tell you about the ones I find interesting? He asks, ignoring Naruto's mini rant about how to kill someone with a head of lettuce. Hinata started with, because she couldn't believe she was even having this conversation. I really don't know. I look for medium breasts, a slim body, and a tight-looking ass. From there, I look at hair color, height, etc. On an individual basis, he said, listing his system. You know, if you're curious about how to have sex with another woman, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Naruto said, Weedabra could teach you a lot. If you don't want to screw a loli, she can turn into an older version of herself. Say what? Asks a red-faced Hinata. Maybe later, she said with a nervous laugh. Hinata-chan, I swear to Kami that I will kill you both if you tell anyone what I'm about to say. Weedabra taught me how to have sex. I was almost 12 and living in Anbu at the time, so I was freaking out about how people lived there. When Weedabra calls herself, we're on a bed 2 hours later. He admitted, she was smoking a cigarette while I was lying there with a blank look on my face. But she has been bothering me for the second time in 8 years. I wouldn't mind if she made herself a little older, but when a girl has to stand on her girlfriend's shoulder to give you a surprise kiss, there needs to be a line drawn. Hinata scratched her head and didn't know what to do. Before she knew he was a vampire and had a Weedabra, Naruto seemed like a strong, not-so-quiet kind of guy, a dark badass. She knew now that he was just a crazy vampire with a pedo sword. You should never meet people you look up to. Let me get this straight. You lost your virginity to a sword that looked like a 9-year-old, and a guy kissed you. Should we write this down so we can find it later? Hinata asks, giving the vampire a fake glare. I swear to Kami that she looked like she was 11. Hinata cursed and hit him on the head, saying, Baka. Kiba asks, a little freaked out by the thought, who had the balls in the ladder to try to kiss you? He had to admit that he didn't like gay people very much. That crazy little Sanuva bitch you, he began, but Kurenai's shun shining in front of them cut him off. Oh, well. Hello, and welcome to Psychos R Us. What can we do for you? He asked Kurenai with a deadpan look. She hit him in the head with her hand and shook her head. She said, I don't understand how someone like you can be so funny. Easy. If I wasn't, you'd all be dead, and I've really grown to like you guys, girls, whatever, he said, giving up at the end. Everyone has their own way of dealing with things. I smoke, which makes a giant nine-tailed fox feel uneasy. He stood up and gave a bow as he said, I also do stand-up comedy, but I don't do kids' parties. She muttered, of all the assassins, I get the crazy vampire. He pointed down at Hinata and said, and of all the young vampires, you got the one who's staring at your behind. Kurenai turned around and blushed when she saw that Hinata was looking at her behind. Things could be worse, and they are. We also have the heir to the Inuzuka family, who is teaching Hinata how to look at beautiful women. She seems to prefer a blank stare, but we should give him credit for trying, he said, patting the Inuzuka on the back. Hinata quickly turned away when she realized what they were talking about. Kurenai couldn't believe her luck. She didn't care what other people thought, because she was on the worst team. At least she didn't have to worry about Kiba's stupid, schoolboy crush thing, but Hinata was staring at her behind. Kurenai asks, covering her eyes with her hand and shaking her head, can we just go get the mission before I hurt one of you? Sure. I'm fine right now. How about you two? Naruto asked his teammates as he turned around. Before they could answer, he said with a smile, great, let's go. I swear to Kami that after I become Chunin, I'll go see a horror movie about vampires and laugh my head off at how wrong they got it, Kiba groaned as he stood up and walked toward the vampire. Hinata stood up and for a moment looked embarrassed. She muttered, sorry for staring, Kurenai-sensei, and gave a small bow before running after her teammates. Kurenai sighed and ran after them. The walk was awkward, but Kurenai couldn't figure out why. Kiba and Akamaru were getting tense as they got closer, which was to be expected, and Hinata did the same thing while occasionally looking at some of the women they passed and blushing. Given that this was their first C rank, this was to be expected, even Hinata's sudden interest in women. What Kurenai couldn't figure out was how Naruto would react. Each step seemed to take away some of his happiness, and as they walked, something about him seemed to change. His whole body seemed tense and ready to move at any moment, and he watched every little thing that moved around him. It seemed like he was planning how to kill everyone and could do it at any time. As soon as they walked into the mission room, he went back to being the Naruto they knew. It was a huge relief. But it surprised them a little to see the former Hokage sitting in the chair. Good night, Sarutobi Gigi. How are you today? Naruto asked as he moved closer. The old man laughed and slightly bowed his head. Alright, I could be better, but I'm old and getting worse. You don't know how much I wish you could stay young forever, he said as the rest of the team walked up. Naruto gave a head shake. Beauty and wisdom come with age, and I'm envious that your body can show them, Naruto said, tucking some of his silver hair behind his ear. Good afternoon to you, too, Kurenai-san, Hinata-san, and Kiba-san, he said to each of them while nodding. He and Naruto had been here before, so there was no reason to go back, and Naruto seemed to agree. I guess you're here to do something? Kurenai bowed and said, yes, Sarutobi-sama. The old man laughed and shook his head. He opened the C-rank drawer and looked through it as he said, no need to be so stiff and formal. He pulled out a scroll and said, I heard about what happened during your last C-rank, so I saved this one in case you came in this week. Naruto asks, dare I ask? With his arms crossed. We know a merchant who runs his business out of a town about a day and a half's walk from Konoha's south gate. He gives us some special fabrics and a few rare herbs for our shops. He doesn't do anything that would make an assassin who wants to hurt Konoha notice him, but he's paranoid. Every time he comes here or goes back, he asks for 2 teams to be sent, Sarutobi said, letting them unroll the scroll and look at the details. Hinata said, that doesn't make much sense. There aren't many bandits in that area, and 2 teams is a bit much. The other team could be doing something useful while one goes back to get the merchant. Naruto looked at the picture of the man and said, oh, so that's why he's paranoid. He was a little bit fat, had a scruffy beard, and was bald. A face with a few lines looked out with green eyes. You, Sarutobi have a very sick sense of humor. Kiba asks, what's wrong? Because he didn't understand. My name is Madari. His wife ran a small drug ring and brought drugs into the country in the caravan he drove. That wasn't too much of a problem, since adults don't get side effects or become addicted to drugs. But then the fun began. You see, a couple of council members found their children dead or very close to it with the green powder on the table in front of them. It turns out that the green powder is very dangerous for children. So, they hired me to fix the problem, Naruto said, a little too fondly for Kurenai's taste. But Madari didn't know about the drugs, and he didn't react well when he saw his wife dead and my mask fading into the shadows. He thinks he is next because his wife never did anything wrong and neither did he. So the teams are not for thieves, but for me. Or, I should say, Nosferatu the Damned. Hold on a sec. Hinata asks, Naruto killed his wife, and you want us to protect him? She looked shocked. He doesn't know it was me because all he saw was my mask. This is Sarutobi's sick sense of humor, since Madari doesn't know much about me. Naruto said, I'm redeeming myself. He laughed at the word. Is it okay to ask the other team? Kurenai yelled at Naruto and hit the vampire on the shoulder, saying, Naruto, show some respect. It's fine. Naruto has always thought of me as his grandfather, and you don't show respect to a grandfather the way you would to a former Hokage. In answer to your question, Naruto, I'd say Team 7. I know you recently helped Sasuke with some social problems, even though they didn't work out, and your history with Kakashi could help you if you got lost again, Sarutobi said, his voice free of blame or anger. Is this all right? The chances of getting into a fight are low, but the pay is good. 3 or 4 days. I swear, you guys are trying to kill me, Naruto said in a voice that no one could hear. He smiled and said, yes. That makes sense to me. Akamaru and I are up for a game. I'm all set. Hinata seemed to stop and think for a moment. She bit her lip, but still said yes. All right. In 2 hours, Team 7 will be waiting for you with the merchant at the south gate, Sarutobi said as she filled out the paperwork with a steady hand. Kurenai bowed and took the scroll, then led her team out of the room. Naruto said out loud, Tsunade is probably out drinking or has a hangover. Okay, well, I'll see you in 2 hours. After he said that, he walked into the nearest shadow and was no longer seen. Kiba got up and left, and Hinata tried to follow him. Kurenai put her hand on the girl's shoulder and said, hold on just a second. You and I need to have a chat about how to act properly. Hinata was curious about how she went from being perfectly straight to being as straight as a bent kunai. At the same time, though, she couldn't help but look at her sensei's chest, which made her feel bad. Still, they were good. Naruto is there. Weedabra asks, do you really think she'll come to me? In reality, she was happy with her lovers. She had already talked to them about it, and they had different opinions. Some didn't care if it was just a one-night stand, while others wouldn't let their partner sleep with anyone else. She's shy about it. She might ask for advice or help in words, but she'll never do it physically, Naruto said, sealing blood into a scroll. Good night, Naruto-kun, a tired-sounding voice called out from behind him. He smiled at Hikari, who was standing there in blue pajamas. Good night, Hikari. Are you feeling better? He asked as he turned around and put more blood on the wound. Just a bit. It's hard to keep my promise, but it'll be okay in the end, she said. When Hikari's mother died, her sister and father saw what a mess she had become. They made her promise that she wouldn't do the same thing when they died, no matter what. She told Naruto about it a day after she got there. In the 3 days she had been here, he had been a good host, even if he was sometimes hard to find. The deaths of her family did hurt her a lot, but Naruto did what he could to make her feel better, and she was grateful for that. She was stuck at home until the storm passed. Since Naruto didn't seem to mind what she wore, she usually just stayed in her pajamas all day, but she changed them every day. I have a job to do in 2 hours. He asks, will you be okay? It will last about 3 to 4 days. In reality, and he was mad at himself for thinking this, Hikari was kind of like a pet to him. He fed her, gave her water, and a place to sleep, and she usually did what he asks. He knew she was smart and not an animal or pet, but he couldn't help but laugh at the joke. She replied with a soft smile, unless the house explodes. Naruto had just finished putting the lid on a pack of cherry-flavored cigarettes. He turned around with a light smile that showed one of his teeth. Don't entice me. He joked, one day, I might set up traps all over the house just to mess with you. Hikari crossed her arms, pouted cutely, and turned away. Meanie. At least I warned you, he laughed, putting the scroll in his pocket. I'm going to go somewhere for a while. Let her in and show her where the blood is if a girl with purple hair and eyes like mine shows up. He said. Her name is Hinata. He walked away into the shadows without saying anything else. Hikari had seen him leave in a similar way and give similar instructions about once before. She didn't know where he went, but it didn't bother her that he would suddenly leave. But, just as if on cue, a knock came from the front door. Hikari was scared for a second because she didn't know what to do if it wasn't Hinata. She walked through the living room and grabbed the door handle as she went to the door. Since she was in her pajamas, she braced herself and opened the door just enough to stick her head out. Hinata was surprised when someone besides Naruto answered the door. The fact that it was someone she didn't know didn't make it any more surprising. But this girl was too old to be one of Weedabra's lovers. Hinata said, hello. He smiled and kept his lips together. She mentally smacked herself for thinking that, but this girl was kind of cute, and she wouldn't want to scare her with fangs. Is Naruto-kun at home? Hikari asked the girl, whose body looked almost too good to be real, are you Hinata? She had never tried out her sexuality, but if this was the kind of thing she could see without clothes, she wanted to know where she could sign up. Yes, Hinata Hyuga, I am a friend of Naruto. Did he say that I would be there? Oh, Hikari Sora, said Hikari, embarrassed by how rude she had been. She opened the door, led Hinata in, and then closed the door. He did say that you would be coming by. Hinata said, I'm sorry if this was a bad time. She turned around and saw Hikari's pajamas. She took off her hood and pulled her hair out of it. Hikari was a little taken with the way her purple hair framed her face, but then she noticed the curl on the top of her head. She had to put her hand over her mouth so she wouldn't laugh. Hinata sighed and crossed her arms while holding Moriko against her breasts. Go ahead and laugh it up. I'll probably be back here a lot, so you might as well get it out of your system now. Hinata sighed and thought about all the ways her instincts showed her how to kill the girl to take her mind off the situation. She was a little shocked and turned back to the laughing girl when her instincts told her how easy it would be to break her bones and violate her before she drank. After a moment, Hikari said, I'm sorry. She didn't know that Hinata was disgusted with herself. I guess all ninjas are a bit strange. She said, well, Naruto-kun is a vampire, and you just have funny hair. Hinata smiled, showing her fangs and letting her eyes glow red for a moment. This was the only part of her being a vampire that she could control. Hikari was stunned for a moment before she looked like she was starstruck. She asked with hearts in her eyes, you're a vampire too? Hinata was surprised by the positive response, which was clear from the way she stood and how red her cheeks were. When Hinata nodded, chaos broke out. Naruto is there. You know. Weedabra said as he looked at the grave through Naruto's eyes. Don't do that. We've talked about this before, right? He asks, knowing that she wouldn't drop his blade. He stood in the shadows where no one could see him, knowing he wasn't supposed to be there. Naruto, he didn't blame what you and his wife did on you. Weedabra reminded him, he got everything and forgave you both. Naruto, jokes and lust aside, you need to move on and find someone new. You have been coming here for almost 7 years. You know how I am when it comes to love. I go from one hell to another. She didn't give it a second thought. What do you mean when you say, into another? You've only been with one. Right on. For a while, there was silence. Widabra thought about her user's love life, and Naruto looked at the grave, not sure if he should keep things secret or tell her the truth. Naruto said, she's almost 7 years old now. She's a prodigy. Widabra laughed and gave Naruto a nod, knowing that the gesture was felt. Taking everything into account, she's doing pretty well. No mother, and a pretend dad. I wonder how she'd react if I told her the truth. Given her family history and what has happened in the past, she is probably more than old enough to understand. Wait. Given what's been going on in her family, she already has a lot to deal with. Naruto went into the shadows and showed up by the south gate, ready to wait for his team and Team 7. He lit a cigarette and took a drag, smiling in a kind of confused way. Naruto, I'm glad you didn't say you were like Alucard. You know that, right? Widabra asks, a little moved by how much he cared about the girl. Alucard lived in a world with men, swords, and guns. I am in the world of shinobi, kunoichi, and jutsu. Most of the time, it wouldn't make sense to compare us, he said. But I'm sure you're proud. I also thank you for it. You know Naruto, right? It's kind of inspiring to see how much you care about her even though you've never met her, talked to her, or heard her voice. It sounds like someone wants to be a mother. And they like what they see, Widabra said with a laugh. Well, Sasuke shouldn't brag about being the first to have a child, since I like to prove people wrong. I doubt I'll ever say that out loud, though. He joked, my daughter might not know I'm her father, but she counts, which made the darkness spirit smile. It's crazy how things work out. Maybe one day, after you join us and get over your fear of our chibi bodies, you could. Maybe. Give. The darkness spirit trailed off, feeling embarrassed. You want a child? Or one of the others? Naruto asks, surprised by the question. Don't worry about it. It's too early in the new century to be thinking about that. Widabra shouted, now pay attention. You have a mission. She was trying to sound like a coach and get him to stop thinking about her almost request. He said out loud, Kami knows something strange is going to happen, as he stomped out his cigarette and lit a new one. I'm going to kill the jerk who said to me, may you live in interesting times. Midori looked at Naruto as they walked and said for the 100th time, I swear I've seen you somewhere. Only about 3 hours had passed since they had left. On the way back, Midori didn't take most of his caravan with him. Instead, he only took his own big wagon, which was pulled by 2 old horses, and he was by himself. Even though the formation was a little different, Kakashi and Kurenai walked behind the wagon while their students covered the sides. Hinata walked in front of Sakura and Kurenai walked behind them on the left side of the wagon. Shino walked behind Sasuke on the right side, and Kiba stayed in front of the horses while riding Akamaru. Since the horses didn't like him, Naruto knelt on top of the wagon and thanked his lucky stars that it was made well. Normally, he would have picked a different spot, but he had to act like a genin who wanted a good view instead of a vampire who knew what was going on within a 50-yard radius. Anyway, when he was awake, Naruto looked around and said, I swear we haven't met, Midori-san. Sasuke seemed to be on task, but his thoughts about Akemi showed how much he wanted to be at home. After apologizing for an hour straight, he finally agreed to marry her, but he was a little too worried about his soon-to-be wife. Akemi was kind of. She was overwhelmed by how easy her new life was and how much care Sasuke gave her, but she was glad that at least she got pregnant by a gentleman. Shino was working as hard as he could, but he seemed interested in collecting and studying the insects in the area. When they took a break, he decided to follow through on this idea. Sakura, to her credit, was focused. She didn't have a single fangirl thought, and she was practicing what to do if she was ambushed. As usual, Kiba and Akamaru were in sync, and it didn't take him long to see that they were ready. He didn't like how his animalistic thoughts made him feel. Kurenai and Kakashi were just as calm as he was. They kept a close eye on what was going on around them but kept themselves busy by talking. Hinata was a little nervous, though, and that made him make a small frown. He readjusted his sunglasses and sighed. He didn't like using the mental link, but he figured it was better than calling her out. Hinata-chan, why are you so nervous? Are you afraid that our last mission will happen again? He asks, his body giving nothing away about what they were talking about. Hinata jumped a little, but she covered it up with a shudder, as if someone had stepped on her grave. A little. It's not your fault, the last time I mean. I just need to grow up. Ah, but what's the point of growing up if you can't act like a child once in a while? Don't worry, little Draculina. You're surrounded by 2 Junins, a special Junin, and 4 other Genin who are very close to becoming Chunin. Nothing will go wrong, he said, blinking slowly. I know, but this mission just feels strange, like something strange will happen. Naruto let out a small laugh, but he didn't think anyone else heard it but Kakashi and Hinata. You'll probably end up drinking from a human during this mission. If the chance comes up, male or female, I'd like to do it. You won't get your freedom without drinking my blood, though, so don't worry about losing my loving guidance, he joked, giving the heiress a small smile. Male, have some compassion. She begged, her face wrinkling with disgust. You get half the power of any soul you eat. If you want to get stronger, you'll have to get over the taste for a minute or so. Hinata gave Naruto a small nod that only he noticed, showing that she didn't like the idea. Still, she might need a little more strength since she was holding a stuffed wolf in her left arm. Don't worry, Hinata. It'll be like taking a bite out of a lemon and then eating 100 cherries, you'll forget all about the lemon, said Widabra, her voice echoing to the heiress. She might have thought about materializing normally, but since she would be with the same people for an hour, she decided to stay in sword form. Team 8 was fine with the spirit, even though they were a little scared, but Team 7 was a wildcard. Kakashi had heard her speak before, and Naruto had told him about her, but they had never met, face to face. Kyuubi X shouted, will you be quiet? It's bad enough being locked in here alone. I don't need a peanut gallery. Naruto laughed to himself. Now why in the world would I do that, Tsukiko-chan? He asked, putting the emphasis on her name. He could hear the witch trying to answer, but Widabra stopped her. She asks, genuinely interested, how did you find out her name, anyway? That's how I learned yours, Widabra, he said, giving her name a strange tone. Tsukiko could feel the spirit's smile, which made her feel very confused. Who knows what they were talking about? Once more, Nosferatu, you prove yourself worthy of my love. I can't wait for the day when you'll hold my body to yours, Widabra said, and her voice suddenly sounded like it was coming from a 20-year-old noblewoman instead of a 9-year-old girl. That day is not today. Calm down, Widabra. One of these days, I'm sure I'll take on more than I can handle. You're no fun. Not even a quickie? She asks, sounding like a little girl again. No. Widabra didn't push, but the vampire could feel her coy smile. With a smirk, he put his finger on Widabra's sheath and ran it along the length of it. From her gasp and light moan, she seemed to like it. She told him to tease. If someone attacks us, I'll feed you. I won't cut them up with my claws or rip out their throats with my fangs, but you can hack them up with your sword. Naruto said. Widabra replied with a sigh, that's so romantic. You'll make some woman very happy before me. Her lovers were romantic, and when they did things together, they often kissed, cuddled, or just held each other in comforting ways. There was often a lot of sex, but there was also a lot of love. Widabra didn't really understand why he loved the woman he did, but she thought that in the end, they would both be better lovers. She could see both of them getting used to the life she was giving them. So, Naruto was the only one who could show her the love that the others couldn't. She didn't mind, though. Sometimes all you needed to feel a certain way was someone of the opposite gender. "Excuse me while I go throw up," Tsukiko said, breaking the mental link. Naruto could have put it back together if he wanted to, but he thought that Weedabra would bother the fox in the future. Why add fuel to fires that are already getting bigger? Unfortunately for Weedabra, no bandits attacked that day or the next, so Naruto couldn't hack them up and give the spirit her favorite food. As they walked into the small town, Madari seemed relieved that Nosferatu the Damned hadn't come to finish the job. He had no idea that Naruto was the one who killed his wife, even though the vampire was thinking about killing the man just to shut him up. "Good," said the fat man simply as he jumped off the wagon. He looked at the ninja and gave him a nod as he went back to his house. "The sooner we get back, the sooner we get paid," Naruto said as he readjusted his sunglasses. It was noon, and Hinata would be struggling under the sun's harsh rays, but something told him that they needed to move on. "Naruto-kun, we just went a long way. Maybe we should take a short break?" Kakashi half suggested when he saw the vampire's eyes light up. He let out a quiet sigh and looked at the genin. "Are you ready to head to Konoha?" They said yes for many reasons they didn't say, but Hinata had to wonder what Naruto was thinking. Move around a lot. Even though she couldn't see it, she could feel him looking at every shadow for something to scare or surprise him. Just that made her wonder why he was afraid of the darkness. Naruto started walking toward the road, and everyone else had to walk quickly to keep up. He didn't notice, though, because he was too busy thinking about what this feeling could be. Battle list. Need blood? Or maybe. He slowed down a little and pretended to listen to the genin's pleas. If he was right, this would be interesting, but his cover would be blown in an instant. Kakashi and Kurenai wouldn't stand a chance against him, and that was just based on a rough guess of how much he had grown. Hinata reached up and put a hand on Naruto-kun's shoulder and asked, "Are you okay, Naruto-kun?" "Well, I guess that's good enough. We might have a fight in a few hours," he said as he lit a cigarette. "It's going to be one hell of a party." Hinata let go of her hand and tilted her head to the side, looking a little lost. Kakashi tensed up a little at the comment because he remembered who had taught him the phrase for the first time. He tried to hide his surprise, but a quick look at Naruto proved that he was right. This. Not a good idea. Kakashi asked as he put his book away, "How many?" Naruto laughed darkly and kept his eyes on the storm clouds that were getting closer. 3. I can smell them. One is cautious and the other two are eager, Naruto said, his eyes turning red at the thought. He might have been. The last few months have been quiet. It would be great to have some action. The other ninja didn't understand what was going on because the two ninjas spoke in different ways. Team 7 had never seen Kakashi so tense, and Naruto had stopped talking and was acting like a genin. Team 8 had never heard Naruto sound so eager for blood and battle, and they were starting to think that this was how he acted as an Anbu. No matter what happens, Sasuke, you must stay out of the fight. The same goes for the rest of you, Kakashi told him. What are we facing, exactly? Kiba asked as he got ready to defend himself. If I'm right, there are 3 S-class ninja who have gone missing, Naruto said, sounding eager. Kurenai's eyebrows went up to the top of her head. She demanded, then why are we walking into this? But neither Naruto nor Kakashi stopped. Unless you think that we can't get away. Kakashi said, Kurenai-san, it's safer if we attack them straight on, especially if they're waiting until we're in the middle of nowhere. But you have to protect the genin. Naruto and I will go on the attack. Sakura asks, Naruto? But he's a genin, and Kurenai-san is a junin. And what do you mean when you say it's safer if we attack head-on? In fact, he's a special junin who is stronger than both Kurenai and me, Kakashi said simply, half smirking under his mask. And a vampire. It will be very dark in a few hours because of the storm, Naruto said, not caring if they believed him or not. Only idiots who are willing to kill themselves would attack a vampire head-on in the dark. Hinata asks, surprised that he had blown his cover, but what's stopping them from attacking now? She could also feel his desire to fight through their connection, and she was afraid that if her eyes changed, so would she. They're waiting for us to get away from civilization. There won't be any witnesses, and this fight will be easy to find if someone knows how to track chakra. They need to be far away from almost everything so that it doesn't become a beacon for unwanted attention, Naruto said with a twisted smile. He didn't want the genin to be scared. Tsukiko said, who cares? Scare them to death, then kill them all. Weedabra laughed at the request from the primal. Special Junin? Asked Sasuke, a little bit impressed. Naruto turned around and looked at the genin. His eyes were red as blood, and he parted his lips just enough so they could see his wicked fangs. And if any of you say a word about it, it's the death penalty. It's your behind I'm supposed to protect, Uchiha, so don't go and make me kill you, Naruto said, the fire in his eyes showing how much he would like to kill them. Orochimaru is interested in you, so it's my job to make sure you don't leave Konoha. The look on Sasuke's face changed, and he nodded. Don't worry, Akemi will help you. He would kill her in an instant under the guise of someone else, probably your brother, to make you want revenge and the power he offers. If you're desperate for power, feel free to ask for vampirism. Long, beautiful nights, great power, and the constant urge to kill everyone around you, drink their blood, drain their souls, and violate their corpses in many different ways. Kakashi was the only person Naruto talked about who didn't turn pale. He knew Naruto tried to be nice, and to the vampire's credit, he often was, but he couldn't change the fact that deep down, he liked that he was a monster. As Naruto soaked up the dim light from the clouds, his red eyes turned back to the road ahead. Some more time. Just a little longer. The tense ninja thought the trip would take forever, but Naruto was just bored with the wait. He didn't care what he killed, he just wanted to kill something. And if he could empty an S-class nuclear submarine. Or both. It would be bad for Orochimaru. Then, as the sun went down behind the mountains, the group came to a part of the road that was surrounded by a big open space. About 30 yards away, 3 people in black cloaks with red clouds on them stood in front of them. As Kakashi and Naruto took a few more steps to get ready for the fight, the genin stopped. Naruto-kun, Kakashi-kun, it's been a while. Yes, it does have Itachi-kun, said Kakashi, pulling out his tanto. Naruto took Weedabra out of her scabbard, and her eyes lit up in the dark. Naruto acts as calmly as he could, aren't you going to introduce us to your friends? Itachi gave a small laugh, which made his strange-looking friends look at him strangely. The killer with the stone face laughed? Itachi replied, the big man next to me is Hoshigaki Kisame, who used to be one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. The man who looks like a plant is Zetsu. Unfortunately, this isn't a social call. May I ask what you want? You don't want to fight like in the good old days, do you? Kakashi asked with sarcasm in his voice. We're here for the Kyuubi, Kisame said, pulling Samahata off his back and pointing it at the 2 of them. So come quietly or I'll cut off your limbs. I'd rather just shave you to pieces, though. Naruto looked at Itachi with a raised eyebrow. He asks, you didn't tell them, did you? I told them it wasn't smart to attack head-on at night, but they won't believe you're a vampire, Itachi said. Right, Naruto said with a wicked grin. He liked it when idiots thought he was a vampire, especially when he had to do it the hard way. Kakashi, you can have the plant. I'm hungry for sushi. Well, do you really think you can take me? The shark man took a stand with his Zanbatu and said, Samahata and I will tear you apart. Don't get in the way, Itachi. I want him to feel some pain. Why don't you go take care of the woman? He asks, spitting out the words. Itachi muttered under his breath, why do that when I can stand to the side and save energy? He was a few yards away. He caught a glimpse of his younger brother out of the corner of his eye and stiffened up because he didn't want to fight him. Luckily, the boy seemed happy to just stare and watch the battle. The Kakashi of the Sharingan. I've heard a lot about you, Zetsu said, breaking the silence as he and Kakashi slowly walked away from the swordsmen who were getting into a showdown. I don't think you've heard it all, Kakashi said, hoping that his skills hadn't gotten too bad. Kisame decided to act first. With Samahata swinging in a wide arc and rushing Naruto, she did so. Megahertz. 5 Mars, March 5th. Naruto turned under the blade and cut the cage bushin in half before blocking a blow from the left. Kisami's punch broke the Kuro bushin, and a quick spin made another one fly away. As Naruto jumped over another swing, a sword cut him in half, turning him into water. Kisame yelled, "Sweeten, Misurappa, violent water wave," as she fired the powerful stream at the vampire from behind. Kaiten, Heizekisho, came a shout from a few meters to his left. Kisame jumped out of the cloud just before it blew up. She landed a few feet away. Naruto ran away from the explosion, leaving smoke and shadows behind him like a pack of wild dogs. When Widabra hit Samahata, Kisame was almost knocked off his feet. Another Samahata caught Naruto in the middle and threw him back in 2 pieces. Both pieces landed a few feet in front of the other genin, with blood pooling under them. "Screw it," Kisame swore, "Leader Sama is going to take my head." But Itachi's laughter cut off that train of thought. "What's the joke?" Hinata yelled, "Naruto-kun," as she got down on her knees and held Naruto's upper body while his legs twitched a few feet away. He had dark eyes. "Please don't die on me." "You'll never die." Zetsu swore as his flytrap was cut by the Tonto and fell back into the ground. Kakashi got ready, but when he turned around, he saw both parts of Naruto flying through the air. As he turned to block the plant man's kunai, grab his arm, and pull him out of the tree, he heard Hinata's cries and almost laughed. Then someone laughed. As Naruto's body turned into blood and shadows, there was horrible, sick, happy laughter. "Worm, I like what you've done." His voice came as the blood and shadows turned into wisps of black smoke and shot up into a black tornado. Widabra's blade cut through the wall of black wind and pushed it away. In its place stood a perfectly healed vampire with a red glow eye. "You're going to level 2 now." Itachi told Kisame, "I think you should stop holding her back," as Naruto brought Widabra's blade to his lips and gently kissed her. "Why?" "So I don't have to see him smack his lips on that sad little SW." He stopped talking when a huge blast of killing intent hit him. Suddenly, Widabra's blade drank in the shadows of the clearing and turned blacker than the night sky. He shouted loudly enough for the shark man to hear, "Weep for the earth that is tainted by the blood of the sinful, dark lady. Devour his darkness for your own." Kisame fell into the water as Widabra cut him in half, but Naruto couldn't avoid the blow that cut off his left leg. As his leg healed, he turned around and gave Kisame a wicked cut to the chest. "Cower, mortal!" Naruto yelled as Widabra crashed into Samahata and cut off a few of its scales. "You, crash, face, slash, the, clang, no life, clang, king." The bushin was destroyed by a powerful downward swing, but as soon as it hit the ground, shadow spires shot up and destroyed the other bushin in an instant. In an instant, Naruto was on the real Kisame, and the man moved fast enough to turn a deadly blow into another cut on his chest. Samahata cut Naruto in half, and a huge group of bats swarmed around the Nukenin and his clone. This made Naruto smile. He blocked a swing from a Widabra in the swarm while his clone used another Misurappa to take out a group of bats. The swarm took off and quickly turned back into Naruto, but he was gone as soon as he was back together. As Naruto cut them in half, the 2 Kisames exploded into water. Kisame cut him in half from behind, but the Bushin's shadows flew behind Kisame, and Naruto shot out of them and cut the shark man's back. Kisame swore and moved a leaf to make room. Blood flew everywhere as Naruto repeatedly rammed Widabra through the man, giving her his shadows as he drank in the man's soul. He liked the strong blood that flowed through his body. When he was done, he dropped the shriveled corpse, and hungry mouths with sharp teeth came out of the shadows and tore into the body, eating it while the vampire looked at Itachi. F.K.U. Both of them turned around to see Kakashi flying toward them with several kunai stuck in his body. He hit the ground and rolled, digging the kunai deeper while Zetsu caught his breath a few meters away. Kakashi groaned, "F fuck," as he stopped near Naruto. When the vampire reached out his hand, Kakashi took it. Itachi and Naruto were the only ones whose eyes didn't widen as Kakashi got to his feet and pulled out all the kunai. At the wounds, a light green glow came from under his clothes. "Your turn," Kakashi groaned and let out a breath. "I'm not in good shape." Naruto didn't stay around to talk. As soon as Kakashi started to talk, he took off. Zetsu swore and started to go underground, but a fanged mouth came out of his own shadow and bit off his leg, leaving him speechless as he looked at the many blood-red eyes. Widabra cut off both of his arms at an angle, which also cut the jaws of the Venus flytrap. Zetsu watched, almost from a distance, in horror as razor-sharp teeth closed around his throat. Kakashi could breathe a little easier now that Naruto had the man between his teeth, but he turned to Itachi with his tanto ready. A few seconds later, Naruto popped up next to him out of nowhere, making everyone jump, even the Uchiha. He held Zetsu's right arm, which had been cut off. Kakashi, who didn't want to fight Itachi, said, "I think this is about to get very civil, very quickly." The short man put his hands up to show he was sorry. Itachi said, "I'm at your mercy. If Leader Sama finds out I did nothing while that happened, I'm dead." Naruto gave a snort. "So, in exchange for your life and safety, you're giving information. We're always the smart ones, aren't we?" Naruto acts as he put Widabra away. Itachi caught the arm that he threw to him. "A gift of peace for the cunning ninja." "Naruto-kun, I've told you 100 times, if I want to keep up with you, I have to be the ninja who is good at math." "As you've already said." He said, "I'm the better ninja, but you're the better vampire." He did this by unbuttoning his cloak and letting it fall to the ground as he raised his arm. Itachi bit into the arms and drank the small amount of blood that came out. Itachi said as he let the arm fall to the ground, "You know, I should be making peace offerings, not you." "Maybe, but we don't like to do things that normal way, do we?" Naruto joked, "If it helps you sleep, think of it as a gift from an old friend." He knew that the younger Nosferatu had trouble sleeping. Itachi laughed as he took off his weapon pouch and put it on the ground. He then took a step forward. Kakashi walked up to him and started searching him for weapons. With the rest of the team around, they couldn't skip that standard procedure. Itachi laughed as the silver-haired man patted him down. "Oh, Kakashi-kun, I didn't know you cared," he said. He sighed and got to his feet, then hit Itachi on the head. "Itachi-kun, this is the last time." "I don't float that way," Kakashi said. "He's not dirty." "That's great. Now all we have to do is go see if Sasuke is satisfied with stabbing you over and over again," Naruto said, his personality changing just like it used to. He came up behind them and put his arms around their shoulders. They walked forward as if they had just come out of a bar. "Or we can explain what happened," Kakashi said, noticing that they were getting strange looks as they got closer. "We could also let him stab Itachi." "It's not like it's going to kill him," Naruto said with a wicked smile as his amethyst eyes lit up. "Everyone, meet Itachi Uchiha, the former Ambu captain, ninja prodigy, S-rank Nukenin, insomniac, no-life prince, and the token gay guy of our old team." Set up camp in the same clearing an hour later. At this point, Sasuke didn't know what to think. The hour-long explanation of the Uchiha massacre had left him confused, and he couldn't just forgive Itachi even though he was told to. He shook his head and asked, "So? What? I'm supposed to forgive you just because you apologized and told me a story?" Naruto took a puff from his cigarette and sighed. He sat on a log in front of the fire. Itachi was to his right, and Kakashi was on the other side of the no-life prince. Sasuke sat on a separate log between Sakura and Shino, and Kurenai sat between Hinata and Kiba. "No, and I don't expect you to," Itachi said with sadness in his voice. "Look, Sasuke, it's not his fault," Naruto said as he put out his cigarette. "It wasn't long after I turned him, and at that age, it's hard to stop the urge to kill." If I had known what orders I could have given him, things might have turned out differently. They didn't, though. They didn't do that. I had to leave to keep some visiting nobles away by telling them that the Uchiha were having a clan meeting and that no one from outside the clan could come. By the time I got back to the living quarters, you were a twitching mess, everyone else was dead, and Itachi was about to kill you too, Naruto said as he moved. The first few blood rages bring out a vampire's meaner side. You, your mother, and a few other civilian Uchihas were meant to live. But once Itachi-kun started killing, he went crazy because I wasn't there to stop him. Sasuke didn't say anything, but he was still making a face. In reality, part of him wanted to forgive his brother, put this behind them, and go back to when he could say he was proud of his brother, but the other part of him just couldn't do it. Would it make you feel better if I told you why I can't sleep? Itachi asks, knowing that telling the boy about his eternal pain might help him feel better. He didn't say anything, but a small nod was all Itachi needed to know. I don't use my vampire powers very often. In all honesty, I don't have more than 20 souls in me, and I often have to fight during the day, so it's just not worth it. I don't feed often either, which makes me less of a vampire. He took a moment to think about how to say this. When a vampire goes too long without getting blood, they start to have terrible dreams about their own deaths, which are horrible and cruel. I often think about the night I lost control, but I'm not killing them, I'm being killed. Because I don't have enough blood, every time I try to sleep, a vampire kills me 100 times over. He said, sounding very tired. The blood from Zetsu's arm might let me sleep for a night, but my starvation diet will torture me until I can find forgiveness for what I've done. Naruto reminded him, drawing a glare from the shorter vampire, that it was easier to deal with things like that when you were full. Itachi quickly replied, these powers are a curse. That's why I only fight like a ninja. Naruto made fun of the Uchiha by saying, a monster imitating a human, how cute. This made the Uchiha look at him with anger. Then, oh no life king, what are you if not a monster pretending to be a person? A murderer who craves blood. A predator that has the right camouflage to look like its prey. He answered with a straight face, a monster that looks human against its will. Itachi, I've accepted that I'm a monster. I'm past the point of redemption. If you'll excuse me, I need to leave before I tear you apart in a way you won't be able to get better from. Naruto got up, lit a new cigarette, and took off. For a few seconds, the light from his cigarette left a glowing trail that led into the forest. At this point, everyone but him would have seen the world as a blur. Kisame and Zetsu had given him power, and he wanted to take a moment to try it out. It was about half of their power from each, but when added up, it was still about an S-level boost. Both weren't good for the kind of fighting he liked, but the chakra and jutsu would give him an advantage over Orochimaru, even in broad daylight. You need to calm down, Naruto. You're growling again, Weedabra told him while mentally petting him on the head. He shook off the touch, but he stopped running while he calmed down. I'm fine, he said in the most calm way possible. Scared, uncertain, nervous, and emotional. Naruto didn't tell her that she was wrong. Instead, he turned around and started walking back to the campsite. He decided to test his powers at a later time. Itachi's question touched a nerve that only he and Kakashi knew about, well, besides Weedabra. It was a low blow, but Itachi knew that Naruto wouldn't kill him for it. The door was still open to horrible torture, but not to death. One of these days, she'll let her guard down, you'll see. No matter how open she is, I'm not what she wants. I'm caught between two different worlds, and it's making me mad. Alucard stayed in the world of vampires, while Ceres tried hard to stay human. They were both strong and enjoyed what they did. I am neither, in neither world, and I don't find much happiness in the big picture. Are you asking for pity fuck? Then why not? When he said that, Weedabra's whole world stopped, and he could feel her anger. No. You always try to get me in trouble, so why not now? I want to have sex with Naruto, the no-life king, not with some whiny fucking vampire. Guess what? You'll be stronger than Alucard or Sarah's could ever imagine because you're stuck between the human and vampire worlds. Get your head out of your cold ass before I use my foot to make sure it's stuck in there tight. Naruto stopped. Widabra had never yelled at him before, so he looked kind of surprised. Told off? Yes. Shouted happy things about this or that? Yes. Angry words at him? No. He didn't answer, though, and instead walked away. Widabra did have a point, and he knew that the spirit could hear his thoughts and feel his feelings. Alucard said that he was one of a kind because he was a vampire with a heart. Sarah's wanted to be human, but he was stuck as a vampire. He liked being a vampire, but he could have lived a normal human life if he had to. Remind me to think about all my problems when I fight Orochimaru. He finally axed the spirit, I mean all of them. Widabra had cooled down just enough for him to feel confused. Why? I'm going to take it out on him. It's fun to be angry at the wrong person. Is there more? Yes, I'll be sleeping alone tonight, and that's the end of it. Bad sport.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.